You know, when we think about the Bible, it's easy to picture quiet parables and beautiful psalms. But honestly, it's also packed with heart-pounding adventure, incredible danger, and some seriously high stakes. And the most dangerous locations in these stories, well, they weren't just scenery. They were the very places that forged faith against all odds. So that's what we're going to dig into. What were the absolute deadliest, most perilous places mentioned in the Bible? And more importantly, what can these ancient stories of survival and courage actually teach us? All right, let's get into it. Here's our game plan. We'll start with how danger and faith are connected. Then, we'll look at some intense survival situations, move on to facing fear itself, tackle a totally impossible escape, and finally, wrap it all up with what these dangerous paths teach us today. Okay, so first things first, it's so important to get this one thing. In these stories, the location is the challenge. We're talking about everything from a scorching desert to an unbeatable city to a raging sea. The environment itself is practically a character, pushing people to their absolute limits and completely shaping their destinies. So let's kick things off with two locations that represent huge external threats. The first is basically a military nightmare, and the second, well, it's a raw battle for survival against nature itself. First up, Jericho. Now, this wasn't just some town with a fence around it. This place was a legendary fortress. I mean, just try to imagine walls so massive, so imposing, that the smartest military minds of the day would just look at them and say, nope, unconquerable. It was a total dead end. And this is where the story gets wild. The plan to take the city, it makes absolutely zero military sense. Forget battering rams or siege towers. The instructions were just march. March in silence. And then, on the last day, make a lot of noise. You got to admit, that's a strategy that requires you to throw out every single thing you think you know about battle. And that's the whole point, right? The story of Jericho is this incredible lesson that sometimes the most dangerous obstacles are overcome by following a path that looks completely crazy to our human logic. Now, let's switch gears to a totally different kind of danger. The wilderness of sin wasn't a fortress you attacked. It was a vast, empty wasteland that attacked you. It came at you with hunger, with thirst, with this crushing sense of hopelessness. It was just a slow, grinding test of pure survival. But here, in this place, where there was literally nothing, something amazing happened. This brutal desert basically became a classroom. Instead of dying of hunger, the Israelites got this strange bread from the sky every single day. When they were dying of thirst, water came out of a rock. The constant threat of death was met with a daily promise of just enough to survive. So the lesson here is incredible. This deadly, barren place was completely transformed. The very environment that should have destroyed them became the one place they learned what it means to trust for what you need, one day at a time. Okay, so we've looked at walls and wastelands, these huge outside challenges. Now we're going to pivot to threats that are way more personal, way more terrifying. These next two examples aren't about strategy or survival skills. They test your inner courage, your very soul. We've all heard of the Valley of the Shadow of Death. And sure, it could have been a real dangerous place, but it's so much more powerful as a metaphor, right? It's for those times in our lives when we feel totally surrounded by fear, by anxiety, by the terrifying unknown. It's a psychological battlefield where, honestly, your own mind feels like the biggest enemy. And the lesson here is just so profound. The point isn't that you get to avoid the valley, nobody does. The promise is that you don't have to walk through it alone. Faith acts like a shield, a guide, not by taking away the darkness, but by giving you the strength to keep walking right through it. Now let's talk about a threat that is not metaphorical at all. It's a blazing hot furnace. For three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the choice couldn't have been clearer. Bow down to a statue or be thrown into a fire and face a horrible, certain death. There was no gray area, no way out, but by having the courage to walk into those flames and then walk out, totally unharmed, they turned an instrument of execution into a stage for a miracle. Their story is just this powerful proof that an unwavering belief can transform the deadliest threat into this incredible testimony of divine power. And that brings us to our climax. This is the scenario that has it all: a massive external threat, paralyzing internal fear, and absolutely, positively no way out. This is the ultimate dead end. Seriously, just try to imagine the sheer terror. The most powerful army on the planet is bearing down on you from behind. You can hear the thunder of the chariot wheels, you can see the dust cloud getting closer, and what's in front of you? A massive, impassable sea. There is nowhere to go. This isn't just a bad spot, it's a moment with literally zero human options left. And that's what makes the Red Sea so unique. It is the perfect definition of peril. It's a complete checkmate, a situation designed to prove that human effort is useless, which means that whatever happens next has to come from a power far beyond their own. And there it is. That's the core lesson. The moment of maximum danger became the moment of maximum deliverance. The parting of that sea wasn't just a clever escape plan. It was a defining, world-changing miracle that people would talk about for thousands of years. So after walking through all these deadly places, Jericho, the wilderness, the valley, the furnace, the Red Sea, what's the common thread here? What's the big idea we can pull from these ancient stories for the challenges we face in our own lives? You know, this slide just nails it. On one side, you've got human logic. It's the sensible thing to do, right? You attack the city, you run from the army, you bow to the king to save your skin. But on the other side, you have the path of faith, which called for a totally bizarre, counterintuitive response that, against all odds, was the only thing that worked. So, if we boil it all down, here are the big takeaways. First, danger isn't just a random obstacle. It's often a test of what you truly believe. Second, those perilous places, they change you. They can become transformative. And finally, your greatest threat can actually become your greatest testimony. It's a setup for something incredible. And that really brings the question right back to you, doesn't it? We all face our own versions of these things, challenges that feel like an unbeatable wall or an inescapable trap. So what is it in your life right now? What's your Red Sea? What's your fiery furnace? Because if these stories teach us anything, it's this. And it's a powerful final thought. The moments that feel the most dangerous, the ones where we feel the most trapped and hopeless, are so often the moments right before a miracle. Peril isn't always the end. Sometimes it's the doorway.